Jesus Christ is our Sabbath. Jesus Christ died for sinners. Though he slays me, yet will I trust in him. When Jesus Christ died, we died with him. We meet all the requirements of the law by faith. Here's a question. Is the world that we live in going to come to an end someday? I mean, the great majority of people, both Christian and non-Christian, seem to think so. The end of the world is a theme of books and movies and endless predictions of how it's going to happen. I'm at least glad to say that Harold Camping stepped out of the race, for predictions of the end time. He finally, apologized and said, I'm done making predictions. But that, there's a lot of other people there are. According to the book 2008, God's Final Witness, the year 2008 marked the last of God's warning to mankind and the beginning in a countdown of final 3.5 years of man's self-rule that will end on May 27th, 2012. People, we got 5 weeks left, so sorry to tell you. I'm glad we got to do this because we're running out of time. On December 4th, the book says, on December 14th, 2008, the first trumpet of the seventh seal of the book of Revelation sounded, which announced the beginning collapse of the economy of the United States. Don, did you know that the book of Revelation was about the United States? I wonder if the 7 churches in Asia Minor realized that it had nothing to do with them or anything about that time period. It was written to the United States. It's just, the guy goes on to talk about, economic collapse and all the stuff that's going to happen, which most of it stuff that he wrote about should already have been seen and been happening because we only have 5 weeks left, I think the trumpets are a little more spaced out than that. And according to the Mayans, the Earth's going to end in December 21st. So if we make it through May 27th, then December 12th's the end. And when we make it through that, guess what? Something else will be the end. So there's always an end coming someday. We're constantly told the world's going to get worse and worse until God destroys it. Well, is the idea that the world is someday going to come to an end, is it taught in the Bible? Well, thank you. Good. I'll get a little feedback. Most people think it will. But let's look at some verses that I think seem to indicate that the world is not going to end. And these verses are important for you to understand as we move on. Genesis 8:21, the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. And the Lord said to himself, I will never again curse the ground on account of man. For the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. And I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and the day and nights shall not cease. Now, folks will say that the Lord destroyed the earth the first time by flood. And when he says, I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done, he means he won't flood it again. Next time he'll burn it. Okay? That is very comforting to my heart. Okay? I won't be drowned, I'll be fried. What a comforting promise, Lord. Thank you so much, Is there any comfort in that at all? And then is that what he's saying? Next time I'll burn you, I won't drown you? Or is he promising not to destroy the earth again? Psalm 148, 4 and 6, praise him, highest heavens, and the waters that are above the heavens. Let them praise the name of the Lord, for he commanded and they were created. He also established them forever and ever. He has made a decree which will not pass away. What decree did God make concerning the establishment of the heaven and earth that will never pass away? Well, could it be Genesis 8:21? God said he would never again destroy every living thing. God can be trusted. He keeps his word. His promises are true. Psalm 78:69, and he builds his sanctuary like the heights, like the earth which he has founded forever. If God established the earth forever, how's it going to end? Psalm 119:90, your faithfulness continues through all generations. You establish the earth and it stands. A generation goes, a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Ecclesiastes 1:4. It sounds like these verses teach that the earth is going to last. But what about those verses that say the world will end? Is there verses like that? Well, there is if you got a King James Bible, you know, so shall it be in the end of this world. And I can hear you saying, see, and the people are like, yep, that's right, it's right there. It's in the Bible, right? No, the problem is, you know, we already talked about this. It's a translation. This is the word I own, and it means age, not world. The New American Standard says the end of the age. Jesus here is talking about something that will happen at the end of the Jewish age, the age he was living in. Notice what will happen, he said, at the end of the age, Matthew 13:49. So it will be at the end of the age, the angels will come forth and take out the wicked. Okay, we got this reverse rapture going on. They're taking the wicked, not the righteous, all right? And they're going to be thrown into the furnace of fire. That's a rapture. I really don't want any part of it, okay? It's the wicked that are taken. They're taken off into judgment in AD 70. The end of the age came upon the first century believers. The Bible nowhere speaks of an end far removed from the first century audience. The end was always at hand. It was near. It was about to come. The new covenant age does not have an end. Look at Isaiah 9, 6 and 7. For a child will be born to us, a son will be given to us, and the government will rest upon his shoulders. And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. There will be no end to the increase of his government. It's not going to end, people. It says, from then on and forevermore. So Isaiah predicted the establishment of Christ's rule on the throne of David that would have no end. It's endless. Daniel says the kingdom will not be destroyed in Daniel 2:44. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed. But it will itself, he says, endure forever. In the days of the Roman Empire, God set up his kingdom and it stands forever. Christ's dominion is everlasting. It will never pass away. It will never be destroyed. Ephesians 3:21 says, to him be glory in the church, in Christ Jesus, to all generations, forever and ever. So Paul says the mission of the church is to give glory to God forever and ever. The Christian age, the new covenant age, it's not temporary. The age we live in will not end. It's an everlasting age. The Bible doesn't teach about a future age to us. The age we live in is the everlasting age of the new covenant. No last days, no end, nothing left to be fulfilled. So, in light of that, I think that being a preterist should change our view of ecology. Now, ecology, the study of the interaction of people with their environment, and this is new to me, okay? In the sense of, well, I know since we've become a preterist, I realize some things have changed in my life, but they're on a more rapid scale now. I mean, if we really believe the earth is going to last, if we believe it has no end, what does it say about how we should take care of it? Are we to be good stewards of this planet? Caring about the environment often gets you labeled as a tree hugger, okay? I mean, I've used that term in a derogatory manner all the time, you know? I mean, because that, you know, you mention anything about ecology, well, you're a tree-hugging wacko, you know? I mean, people who choose to use cloth diapers rather than disposable get looked on as weird.
We're already weird.
Yeah, well, that's true. We are already, but so it doesn't matter, right? You know, buying that super environmentally friendly car will get people saying, you ought to move to California where the rest of the wackos are, you know? Move out there on the left coast. But if the age we live in and the world that we are in is to endure, shouldn't we really all be doing our part to take care of the planet? Let me ask you a question. When is the last time you heard a message about ecology from the church? Has anybody ever heard one? Okay, we're going to talk about Francis Schaeffer. At least you have heard one? Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that's amazing, isn't it? I mean, we don't, you know. I think it's quite obvious that environmental issues receive very little attention in Christian circles. There are so many other significant issues. You know, we want to talk about the resurrection, and we want to talk about the return and the judgment. We want to talk about all this other stuff, but we don't want to give any attention to the environmental issues. We don't want to be viewed as weird. And I think in Christian circles, it's just viewed as unimportant. Especially since most Christians believe the earth will be destroyed after the millennium anyway, so why take care of it, you know? I think we shy away from these issues because environmentalists are frequently New Agers. So Christians who practice stewardship of the planet out of dedication to God may be unjustly identified with pantheism. Because the deep ecologists are usually pantheists, and they're fanatics, and they're New Age, they're Hindu, they're Buddhists, they got these overtones. Such organizations such as Greenpeace and Earth First represent this type of groups. Members from this movement favor radical confrontation. The pantheism of the deep ecologist teaches that all organisms and entities in the ecosphere are equal in intrinsic worth. One proponent says this: unless the need were urgent, I could no more sink the blade of an axe into the tissues of a living tree than I could drive it into the flesh of a fellow human. See, this is why I think we're afraid to even talk about ecology. According to David Foreman, listen to this: a human life has no more intrinsic value than an individual grizzly bear life. If it came down to a confrontation between a grizzly and a friend, I'm not sure whose side I would be on. But I do know humans are a disease, a cancer on nature. That's what I thought when I read this. I thought, between a grizzly and a friend, I'm like, boy, I don't want to be your friend. Okay? I do know human beings are a disease, a cancer on nature. And see, this is why we don't want to associate with that. We don't be associated with these type of people. You know why? They're nuts. Okay, they are. I'm just going to say they're whack jobs. All right, you're out there hugging trees and doing this crazy stuff, and it goes to extremes. You know, people matter. They just have this dangerous tie-in with pantheism and the worship of nature in the place of God, and this anti-biblical elevation of all forms of life to an equal status that makes humans no more different than slugs or snails or bugs. But the real issue is, what does the Bible say that Christians should do when it comes to the environment? Does the Bible address this? Well, maybe not directly, but I think it does teach, and I think most of you would agree with me, that God has called us to be good stewards. The Bible tells us the earth is God's, it is not ours. Psalm 24:1, the earth is the Lord's and all it contains, the world and those who dwell in it. The earth belongs to Yahweh, and we are stewards. Passages like Luke 12:42-48 give us examples of how a steward should be. It says, and the Lord said, who then is a faithful and sensible steward, whom his master will put in charge of his servants, to give them their rations at the proper time? Blessed is that slave whom his master finds so doing when he comes. The talk here about a steward in a master's house. In general, we're servants. God's the master. The earth is his. And if we're to be faithful to manage the earth, we're to care for it. We're to take care of it. Christian stewardship is a way of living in which we recognize that everything belongs to God. All resources must be used for his glory and for the common good. Solidarity is the fruit of stewardship. And I think that's one of our big problems. We're so individualistic. We don't care about the community. We don't care about others. We just care about us. And if it's easier for us, then we do it. If we had more sense of a solidarity, more sense of a community, I think we maybe would change our views on some of these things. Leviticus 25:1-12 speaks of the care Israel was to have for the land. Leviticus 25:2-4, speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land which I shall give you, and the land shall have a Sabbath to the Lord. 6 years you shall sow your field, and in 6 years you shall prune your vineyard to gather in its crops. But during the 7th year the land shall have a Sabbath rest. A Sabbath to the Lord. You shall not sow your field, nor prune your vineyard. Leviticus 25:23, the land moreover shall not be sold permanently, for the land is mine. You are but aliens and sojourners. Now I know this is written to Israel, but why did God tell them to care for the land? Why did he care about that? And why did he punish them for not doing it? What's the reason for taking a seventh year for the land. The land has to replenish itself. And when you just keep continuing to harvest and harvest like we've done in America, you deplete the soil. There's no more minerals left. There's nothing left in the soil, and the crops it produces are deficient. I believe that we have a responsibility to the earth that exceeds that of the unredeemed. We're the only ones who are rightly related to the Creator, and we should be showing others the way to environmental responsibility. But listen, we have been accused as Christians of the exact opposite. By those outside the church, the Christian faith has been accused of holding to a theology that encourages exploitation of the environment. Since 1967, the claim of Lynn White Jr. in his paper, The Historical Roots of Our Ecological Crisis, was that the Judeo-Christian tradition was the cause of our ecological crisis. And White's paper, which has been reprinted in numerous textbooks and other anthologies, is the main reason that college students learn that Christians are the problem with the environment. Now, Francis Schaeffer was among the first Christian apologists to respond to White's complaint. And he said this: "The Christian is called upon to exhibit this dominion, but exhibit it rightly, treating the thing as having a value in itself, exercising dominion without being destructive." Even as far back as 1554, John Calvin had interpreted dominion to mean a responsible care and keeping that does not neglect, injure, abuse, degrade, dissipate, corrupt, mar, or ruin the earth. Can you imagine that they're concerned about that in the 1500s? I mean, a Calvinist concerned about the environment. Our theology may not encourage exploitation like we're accused of the environment, but we sure haven't been saying much about our need to be good stewards. I've never heard a message on ecology. Never heard a message on Christian response. I've heard a lot of message on stewardship. I was a Baptist, okay? But, to Baptist, stewardship means one thing: money. That's all. We're having stewardship, campaign. I thought, here we go again, They never stewardship about anything but your money. And that's because they want your money, So you got to be good stewards, and to be a good steward means give them your money. I think that caring for the environment should be part of our everyday lives. And what does that mean? Well, should we recycle? I think that's part of it. I mean, there's a lot of things we could do. I think if we have choices between something disposable or something long-lasting, we should pick the thing that's more environmentally friendly. There's a million things that we can do, and I know it seems overwhelming because it's just me. How am I going to affect this huge planet? Well, if everybody has that mentality, then we just all trash it. But if everybody thinks, let me do my part. Let me do my part. Our land continues to be degraded by the use of pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers. And just because DDT is no longer used doesn't mean that there's no potentially harmful chemicals are being used anymore. The treatment of our hazardous chemicals and waste continues to be an unsolved problem. And remember, the bottom line of all this is money, okay? What does this mean to our daily lives? Have you ever used Roundup to kill weeds in your garden? How many of you use Roundup? It's the most widely used herbicide in the United States. So there's a very good chance you've used it. In fact, millions of pounds are used every year on U.S. gardens, lawns, and extensively on farms growing genetically modified Roundup-ready crops. Okay? They're modifying the crops to have pesticides built into the crops to try to protect the crops from insects. So when you eat the crops, you got the pesticide already grown into the genetically modified thing. Anybody know who makes Roundup? Monsanto. You do some study on Monsanto, it's one of the most evil, destructive organizations on the planet. They are in an all-out attempt to kill us all. I don't know if there's a conspiracy behind it. I think it's probably just money. But, once you spray Roundup, it kills your weeds. It does a great job, okay? But it doesn't just magically disappear then. Instead, research is showing that glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Monsanto's Roundup herbicide, is contaminating everything from food and air to groundwater, even human beings. Research in the German journal Ithaca revealed significant concentrations of glyphosate in the urine samples of city dwellers. The article revealed that study participants had concentrations of glyphosate that were 5 to 20 times the limit for drinking water. This is an alarming finding because glyphosate is easily one of the world's most overlooked poisons. And you know how you get poison overlooked? You got enough money. Research published in 2010 showed that the chemical, which works by inhibiting the enzyme called EPSP, that is necessary for plants to grow, causes birth defects in frogs and chicken embryos at far lower levels than is used in agricultural and garden applications. I used to love Roundup. What's frustrating is I got a bunch of concentrated stuff still left, sitting in my shed. I'm trying to figure out what I should do with it. I love it because it makes my life easier. I spray it along the fence line. I spray it around the pool. It saves me time from weeding. I spray it in my ditch out front. It kills all the weeds. It's just, it's simple. But as I think about this as God's stewards, I'm thinking, I know how destructive this is, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to hurt that many people, just me using it. But then you have to make a determination, okay? If everybody says that, we're going to pollute the planet. We got to do what we can do, the little bit we can do to care for it. And let me tell you, it takes more time, it takes more money. I'm trying to find an ecologically friendly alternative to Roundup because, like I said, it's a great product if it wasn't killing everybody. And they have found it to cause cancer. But, that doesn't matter because they get to sell cancer drugs once you get the cancer. So they make out all the way around. And I think no thoughtful Christian can have this idea of contempt for God's creation. I think Christians who are wise and they're caring are going to practice a stewardship in regard to the creation. I mean, I thank God for what He's given us. I mean, in this venue here to look out over the ocean is just incredible. And for those of us that were gathered the other morning and we watched the sun come up together, it's a beautiful place. I thank God for what He's given us. And we don't want to ruin it. We got to be prudent. We got to be thoughtful about this. And I'm not talking about, getting involved in the environmental wacko extremes that, does nothing but fill the coffers of the environmental wackout groups and support the coercive government. I'm not talking about getting involved in that stuff. I'm talking about you doing your part as an individual to do what we can to protect our planet. And then again, it's because we think so individually that we don't, I think, exercise more care for the environment. We had a corporate mentality. We want to care for the planet that our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren are going to inherit. I fear for my grandchildren because I see what's going on. So I believe that we're responsible to be good stewards for the planet. And I'm asking you to consider this and think about this. And I just use one illustration, one little thing in my life that, is making a huge difference in my life. I don't know how big a difference it's making in the environment, but it's making a difference in my life. I believe we're responsible for the planet, but listen. Now hang on, because this is where I'm going to get meddling. I don't think it stops there. I believe that we also are to be good stewards of the physical bodies that God has given us. I know. Hang on, okay? Boy, when you talk about this, Christians get upset, okay? They just get upset because you've gone to meddling. Do you think God wants us to take care of our bodies? Oh, you do? Well, good. I'm glad to hear that because then we'll be able to get along maybe, okay? Most of the prayer requests that you hear in the church today are for what? Without a doubt, physical health. Now, this is very unbiblical. I mean, I'm not saying it's totally unbiblical to pray for your health, but I'm saying if you look at the Scriptures, go through the prayers of the New Testament and find out how many of them are for healing. They didn't pray for that. Oh, brother so and sister so-and-so's foot is aching, or, that wasn't the prayer. It was always for their spiritual life, their growth, and their, and I'm not saying it's wrong to pray for people's health. I think Paul did pray, in a sense, for health. He prayed that the thorn in the flesh would be removed. This is a major prayer request in the church. The reason it is, everybody I know wants to be healthy. I don't know anybody said, man, I wish I was sicker. I've just been feeling so good lately. I just wish I could feel a little more miserable. I could give you some pointers, if you really want it. All right? But we want to be healthy. But the sad truth is that most Christians take better care of their homes, their lawns, and their cars than they do their bodies. They do, but we don't even give it a thought. Let's say that a Christian we knew was slowly poisoning himself with arsenic. We knew it every day. They were taking just a little bit of arsenic, getting sicker and sicker. And every week they came into prayer meeting and they'd say, please pray for me. I feel so bad. I'm just hurting. What should I do? Please pray for my health. What would you say to that person?
Get rid of the arsenic.
I'd say, you idiot. Now Glenn would go over and put his arms around him and say, oh brother, we love you. And we're gonna pray for you. And that's what Glenn would do, and that's why I want to be like Glenn. But I would say, you idiot. Stop sticking that stuff in your mouth, and you'll feel a whole lot better. You're poisoning yourself. Like you keep hitting yourself on the thumb with a hammer, and you say, my thumb hurts. I will stop hitting it. And I think, okay, that may be an extreme illustration, but I think it illustrates the point. We can't keep putting things into our body that are harmful for them and asking God to make us healthy. If you want to be healthy, stop eating things that are harmful to you. Let me try to explain. I believe the main factor in poor health is a poor diet. All right? And I'm going to tell you why I believe this in a minute. Now, there are other issues. There are environmental issues. Most of the first responders in 9/11 are dead. They died of toxicity from stuff they breathed in from different things. And I know health people who are treating them through infrared sauna to try to get the toxins out of the body, and some of them have survived because of that. But there's a lot of different environmental issues. One not talked about too much is a lot of us have amalgam fillings which emit mercury poisoning constantly. Every time you touch a filling, every time you chew, every time you bite, it emits a mercury vapor comes off the tooth, and mercury is very toxic. Some of you have root canals, I'm sure. Root canals are an extreme hazardous thing. You got dead tissue in your body that bacteria forms in. I've heard several doctors who, when they can't find what's going on with a person, have checked into, do you have root canals? And they pulled root canals out, and the patient has got better. This one doctor wrote this whole book, did all this research on root canals, which is fascinating. But most dentists just, let's drill away. We don't care what the research says. This guy, every time someone had a sickness and they had a root canal, he pulled the root canal, cut a rabbit, put the thing under the rabbit's skin. He said within 2 weeks, the rabbit would develop these symptoms and die. So he said, I took some healthy teeth out and put those in the rabbit, and the rabbit was fine. So whatever this, and people, we don't understand that, but there's a lot of research out on it, but, that's covered up. And people, go to most of your dentists, and they'll say, oh, amalgam fillings are no problem. Say, really? Okay, then you take it out of my mouth and throw it in the trash can. And they'll say, well, I can't do that. Why? Because you'll go to prison. Because the EPA says that comes out of your mouth, it is toxic, it is a poison material, and has to be disposed of hazardously. In a proper hazardous disposal. Every dentist knows that. Ask your dentist. But they'll tell you, in your mouth, it's okay. Take it out of your mouth, it's toxic and it's destructive. Now, does that make any sense to anybody? Okay? I am going to a biological dentist who is removing the mercury from my mouth, and when he does it, he's got a big mask and things on, and it's scary just to look at it, because he's afraid of that stuff, because he knows better. All right, so there's other factors besides diet that we need to look into also, but I think diet is something that is a strong effect. We are literally making ourselves sick through inactivity. We don't do much exercise anymore. All right, inactivity and poor diet. And if we have a stewardship to the planet, which I believe we do, certainly we have a stewardship to our physical bodies. We're to be good stewards of what God gave us. God put us here to serve Him. It's kind of hard to do it when you're so sick that all you're doing is complaining all the time. So I think this is part of serving the Lord. If your mind is sharp and if you're healthy, you can get a lot more accomplished. Most Christians and most people in general don't understand this. So they don't understand that the standard American diet, sad, it is really sad, is making them sick. And I really do. I think we need to educate people, because I think most people don't have a clue about that. They just eat, and then why would my diet be wrong? So these Christians are praying for health while they poison themselves. And we need to be Bereans, not just in our theology. And I'm seeing this more and more. The more I learn, the more I'm seeing you got to be a Berean in every area. In politics, don't believe anything anybody. Study it. Look behind. Search. In the medical field, in any field, in nutrition, do some research. Don't believe. Listen, people, they're lying to us every day from every direction. They're lying to us. And if you follow it back, it's all about money. Someone's making money. We got to be informed so we can make good choices. And that's all I want to do, is give you some information, and then you can throw it out if you want. That's up to you. What you do with the stewardship of your body, that's between you and your family. If you're not, if you're in a hurry to get out of here, then just keep eating the standard American diet, and you're on your way. All right? And you might ask, what's wrong with our food? Didn't God give us the food? That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. Let's look at that. Genesis 1:31. God saw all he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning the sixth day. God made it, and he made it good, right? When God created our food supply, it was pure, it was healthy, it was life-giving. But it's not that way anymore. Our food supply has been contaminated, and for the most part, it is killing us. So what happened? Well, for most of history, the quest for sufficient food was the chief occupation of the earth's people. I mean, that's what they did. They were hunter-gatherers. They were just trying to stay alive. And before the development of agriculture, it's believed that the diet would consist of 35% meat, 65% plant foods. No dairy products, and particularly no cereal, no grains were consumed. Meat and vegetables. I'm okay with that. But back then, we have to understand that meat from wild animals contained very low levels of fat. It was about 4% fat, compared to 25 to 30% fat today in the domesticated animals. And the plant foods in the early diet consisted of a variety of vegetables and fruits. Over the years, people began to give up their nomadic ways in favor of living on specific plots of land. They'd start to grow their own plants. They start to domesticate animals. And for the first time, dairy products and grain cereals became part of the diet. I recently read a study, I thought of this as I'm saying that, about grains and stuff, about cereals. And the health ranger, Mike Adams, had an article on cereal, and they did this research, and they gave cereal, just took cereal off the shelves, gave it to rats. And they said most of the rats died within 2 weeks. It's just, high fructose corn syrup and a bunch of other chemical stuff, and they just name it whatever, and we feed it to our kids. All right, for the first time they began to use dairy products. Then came the Industrial Revolution of the 1800s, when large numbers of people left farming to work for wages in the factories or to become entrepreneurs. And there's a marked change in the kind and the quantities of food that were readily accessible. In the years since the Industrial Revolution, the U.S. diet has again undergone very large changes. Since 1800, or in 1800, 95% of all Americans consume minimally processed foods, produced chiefly on their own small farms. But by 1900, only 60% of the population remained on farms. In less than 175 years, nearly all Americans have become dependent on others to produce and distribute their food to supermarkets. Unlike our ancestors who ate real food, our food is grown in soil that has been depleted of minerals. It's loaded with pesticides, herbicides, GMOs, that's genetically modified organisms, BGHs, bovine growth hormone, which is injected into most cattle now, and preservatives. And I'm just talking about fruits, vegetables, and meats. Not to mention that so much of what we eat today is processed in a factory, not grown in the soil. So much of what we eat today is destructive to our health. And listen, taking a pill won't fix it. Taking a whole bunch of pills won't fix it. Let me give you some evidence to back up my assumption that the main factor in poor health is a good diet. How many of you have heard of Max Gerson? I know all the Bereans got their hands up. Okay. Max was born in Germany in 1881. As a young physician, he suffered from debilitating migraines that kept him in bed in a darkened room in violent pain and nausea for several days at a time. Well, as a young physician, he asked his colleagues, hey, what do I do about these migraines? You know what his colleagues told him? By the time you're 50, they ought to go away. That's seriously what they told him. Max just didn't, he said, I can't quite buy that. I'm pretty sick. So he read everything he could get his hands on about how to create, and he just couldn't find anything. Then one day he stumbles across this paper of how a woman suffering from migraines was helped by changing her diet. And he thought, that's weird. Nobody ever taught him about anything about diet. None of his teachers ever said about a possibility of chronic disease being connected with diet. So he thought, well, that's kind of weird, but I'll try it, you know? He talks about being on the farm and how when they used to fertilize crops, you could see the worms coming out of the ground and trying to get away. So he started putting things together. They don't like that stuff. It's not good for them. They're smarter than us, you know. So he started putting things together. So he put this diet together, and he cured his migraines. His migraines went away. So he thought, well, this is really cool. So when he got a patient in his practice who had a migraine, he says, here, let me put you on this diet. And they went on diet, and the migraines went away. Well, something weird happened. One of the people that he put on his migraine diet came back to him and said, Doc, my skin tuberculosis is gone. And he said, no, that can't be. No, that's wrong, you know. So he said, well, you know anybody else with skin tuberculosis? And they said, yeah, we know. Well, can you bring him in here? And so they came in and they put him on the diet. And the tuberculosis went away. And so his work eventually came to the attention of the famed thoracic surgeon, Ferdinand Sauerbach. And under Sauerbach's supervision, Gershon established a special skin tuberculosis treatment program at the Munich University Hospital. And Sauerbach told Gershon, you know, I got a group of patients, 450 patients. He goes, if you can make a difference in one life, if you can cure one of these people, because they thought it was incurable at the time, you can cure one patient, I'll be a believer and we'll start working together. 446 of the 450 tuberculosis patients treated by the Gershon diet recovered completely. They recovered completely. And so they established a treatment center and started helping these people. Now at this time, so Gershon is catching on now that, see, he thought his diet was migraine diet. Then he realized, well, it's beyond migraines. And then he came to the realization, you know, diet will cure any sickness. And he attracted the friendship of Nobel Prize winner Albert Schweitzer by curing Schweitzer's wife of lung tuberculosis, after all conventional treatments had failed for her. Gershon and Schweitzer remained friends for life and maintained a regular correspondence. Dr. Schweitzer followed Gershon's progress as a dietary therapy was successfully documented, and he saw how it applied to heart disease, kidney failure, and finally cancer. Schweitzer's own type 2 diabetes was cured by treatment of Gershon therapy. And today the Gershon therapy focuses on what it sees as the two major enemies of health, toxicity and deficiency. They treat toxicity with coffee enemas. And they discovered this quite by accident. The military was using it for some reason, and they had used coffee because it's the only thing they could find. So they found out that it does a tremendous job. Now, personally, I like my coffee orally, you know, but they're finding out this stuff works, okay? Toxicity and deficiency, and they're treating the deficiency with large doses of juice, carrot juice, apple juice. The Gershons run a clinic in Mexico right now. Listen, the Gershons have about a 97% cure rate of any disease. Any disease. They've taken patients who the doctors say, go home and die, you got a couple months to live. And they say normally within 3 days to a week, these patients are pain-free, walking around, doing different. Now the Gershon therapy is not something, you know, that you can just take easily. I mean, if you do it full-blown, you can't be working because it takes, you know, it's large concentrations of juice. You're drinking 8 ounces of juice every hour. You're doing 6 coffee enemas a day, plus other supplements that they use. So, I mean, it's a full-time thing, but we're talking about you want to live, all right? But see, in our culture, you know what people would rather say? All day, all that work, making all that juice, doing those coffee enemas. I can go to the clinic, I can get chemo, it takes probably a half hour, an hour, and I go home and I don't do anything for a week. And so people will always choose what's easy. I just believe that. They'll always choose what's easy. The reason these things are working is because, people are, it's a result of the denatured artificial lifestyle. And it's connected with the modern Western diet and to our polluted environment. They found people in different groups around the country, they never have cancer. And they're like, why don't they have cancer? And they find out what they eat and what they do and find out what's different. What is it about their environment? And the Gershons are very strict about all kinds of pollution. You can't have a clock in your room. You can't, because, the frequencies put off by that. And they're just, but let me tell you, it works. Charlotte Gershon, who runs the clinic, she's Max's daughter. She just had her 90th birthday. She's not on any medicine. She's never been to a doctor in her life, other than her father. She works every day. She drives from California into the clinic in Mexico. You know why there are clinics in Mexico? They're illegal. It's illegal to cure people with food in this country. It is. So they can't have the clinic here. So they go, and there's several clinics in Tijuana because they can't have them in America. All right. So what can we do? How can we eat healthier? Let me give you the simplistic answer first. Don't eat anything with a label on it. I mean, you want to be healthy? Start right there. If it's got a label, you ever seen a banana with one of them things on it? An apple? Fruit? No, you don't have those things on it, okay? Usually when there's a label on something, it's not really food. And if you're going to eat something with a label, make sure see the ingredients down there? Make sure there's no more than 4 ingredients on it. Okay? When it's got ingredients you can't say, you have no idea what it is, be careful there too, okay? I mean, you read some of these things and you're thinking, what in the world is some of this? It's a science project. It's not food. All right, that's the short answer. Now, hang on. I'm going to give you the long answer, okay? If you want to live a healthy lifestyle, we need to remove or greatly cut back on 5 white foods from our diet and switch to a more raw vegetarian, fruitarian diet. Now, I know that if you're not sick, people don't want to hear this because if I'm not sick and it ain't broke, I'm not going to fix it, right? Just keep on doing what you're doing. And that's up to you. Of course, that's fine. I'm just, like I said, giving you some suggestions. I know in my own life, last year I was having a lot of problems with breathing. I developed allergies from everywhere. I was allergic to everything. I went and got tested, and they said, you're just about allergic to everything. Food, all kinds of stuff. I'm like, great, I can't eat anymore, can't do anything anymore. What am I supposed to do? And I'd lay down at night, and I would wheeze. I couldn't breathe. There was times, it's a scary feeling to not be able to breathe. I grabbed an inhaler and took a hit on it. Finally, I went to the doctor. Sandy just said, you better go to the doctor because I'm going to make an appointment for you. She goes, we don't want you to die on us. So I went to the doctor, and he gave me an inhaler, and it made a huge difference. And I said, I don't want to be on this. He said, take 2 puffs in the morning, 2 puffs at night. So I changed my diet. I went to juicing. I did 8 ounces, 8 times a day, cut out anything that was processed, anything that wasn't really food, and just seen an incredible difference in my life. Okay, I lost 50 pounds. That was a big difference right there. But, I feel great, and I've gone on juice fast, and it's amazing that after 10 days of eating nothing, just juice, I felt absolutely great, and I thought, there's something wrong with this. And people I talk to say, that can't be healthy for you. and I would laugh. I'm like, you're eating a Big Mac and the fries, and you're saying, this juice is probably not healthy for me. That's the American mindset, okay? Because they think that's food, and juice is just something, loaded with living enzymes that nourish the body, All right, so let's look at these 5 whites. Gary, watch the door. Don't let Dawn run out here, okay? Because the first white we're going to talk about is meat. All right, and we put meat in the white category because it contains white fat. Now, let me make this clear. I'm not a vegetarian, I'm not a vegan. I probably never will be, okay? I love beef, okay? On every Friday night, it's a tradition with Kathy and I make a filet. I don't like eating cheap beef. If I'm going to eat it, I want to eat something good. So we get fillets, and I make a filet, and I fry up some onions and coconut oil. And, and we have this little feast that I really enjoy. All right? But what you got to understand is the meat that we have today is very, very different than what our forefathers ate. All right? Again, meat back then contained about 4% fat. Now it's 20 to 25. And the problem with this is the meat we eat today is full of antibiotics. It's full of bovine growth hormone, preservatives, and toxins. All right, so you're getting way more than the meat you want to get, okay? I don't think meat is a problem if you get your meat from grass-fed beef that's organic and from free-range chickens. You know, people, when you see get a hold of an egg from a free-range chicken that's been running around eating bugs, you've never seen an egg till you've seen one of those, okay? When you crack it, it's this deep yellow, and you're like, what's something wrong with this egg? Yeah, it's got loaded with nutrition, okay? Because it's been eating bugs all day long, and it's just, you know, it's full of good stuff for you. But that's totally different than what most people are eating. The stuff you find in the stores, the stuff you find in the restaurants, and be careful of labels. They lie to you. You know, it'll say on it, no preservatives added or no this added. That just means they didn't add it. The people who had it before them added it already, okay? So be careful. And I think, you know, like I said, I love meat, but I probably eat it once a week, you know, and the rest of the time is, and I think you can do almost anything you want to do if you do it in moderation, you know? You know, people say, I can't give up this, I can't give up that. Well, I understand that, and you don't have to if you don't want to. But if you're sick and you want to get well, you might want to, you know, make some adjustments there. All right, the second one, dairy. In American society, one of the most sacred of all sacred cows is the milk of the cow itself. Cow's milk is more American than apple pie, and that's because apple pie doesn't have the congressional lobbyists and have a multi-million-dollar advertising budget. All right? Most parents wouldn't think of raising their children without the benefit of cow's milk to help their bones grow big and strong. Its silky white texture is the very epitome of our concept of wholesome purity. Despite what the dairy industry has led us to believe, many medical doctors and nutritionists are now saying that cow's milk is not healthy for human consumption and that it can lead to many serious diseases. Now, when they talk about milk, please understand, they're talking about pasteurized milk, not raw milk. Okay, raw milk's good for you, but in Virginia it's illegal. When you look at the credentials of some of these doctors making these statements against milk, it'd be hard for the dairy industry to accuse these physicians of being on the lunatic fringe of the medical world. For example, Frank Oski, MD, the author of Don't Drink Your Milk, is the director of the Department of Pediatrics at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine and physician-in-chief in the Johns Hopkins Children's Center. He's the author, co-author, editor, and co-editor of 19 medical textbooks and has written 290 medical manuscripts. And Dr. Oski states this: a study of over 20,000 infants conducted in Chicago as far back as the 1930s, the overall death rate for the babies raised on human milk was 1.5 deaths per 1,000 infants, while the death rate in babies fed cow's milk was 84.7% per thousand during the first 9 months of life. The death rate from gastrointestinal infections was 45 times higher in the non-breastfed infants. This is a doctor writing this stuff. This is not some wacko preacher making it up, okay? While the death rate from respiratory infections was 120 times higher. An earlier analysis involving infants in 8 American cities shows similar results. Infants fed on cow's milk had a 20 times greater chance of dying during the first 6 months of life. Samuel Epstein, MD, a scientist at the University of Illinois School of Public Health, is one of the top experts of cancer prevention. Dr. Epstein points out that bovine growth hormone, milk, is supercharged with high levels of natural growth factor, XX levels which have been incriminated as a major cause of breast, colon, and prostate cancers. So the little slogan, milk, it does a body good, that doesn't do a body any good. Now, Dr. Mercola, if you're not familiar with Dr. Mercola, he's got probably one of the best websites on nutrition. If you don't have his newsletter, please get his newsletter. He's constantly putting out great stuff. And he sells stuff, so, you know, sometimes he tries to sell you stuff, but for the most part, he's just trying to give you information. I think he's great in some of the stuff he puts out. He writes this: I don't recommend drinking any milk, organic or otherwise, that is pasteurized. See, whenever you heat anything above 160 degrees, you destroy the enzymes in it. All right? You can avoid both the risk of bovine growth hormone and pasteurization by only drinking raw milk that comes from a small farmer you know and trust. This is the only way to drink milk if you're interested in protecting your health. But in Virginia, it's illegal. And you've heard on the news about the farmers, in Pennsylvania being taken off to jail because they sell raw milk. Now, that is a criminal thing in this country, selling raw milk to people because they think it's bad, it's evil, And if you read the story of it, you find out how it ended up that way anyway. And again, it's all about money. Well, let's move on. The next white to avoid is salt. It creates untold physical problems and suffering. Listen, the body needs sodium, but it must be in an organic form in order to be usable by the body. Table salt, which is sodium chloride, is an inorganic sodium compound formed by the union of sodium and chloride that's extremely toxic to the body, causing it to retain fluid in an effort to keep this protoplasmic poison in a suspension and out of the cells. Now, I use Himalayan salt. It's pink. People say, what's in your salt shaker? I say, it's salt. It's actually good for you. It's not as strong as table salt, but it's good for you. Sea salt's also good for you. If it's real sea salt, be very careful. You go to the grocery store, it says sea salt. It's not sea salt. Okay, but they'll say that because, people are on a health kick now, so we'll put natural on products, and we'll put things on products that aren't at all, so be careful there what you get. The salt that comes on the table is a chemistry project, okay, and it's not good for you, all right? All right, the next white, what do you think another one is?
Sugar.
Oh, good, let's go with sugar. Sounds like a good one. It's a white substance that's creating physical problems. Listen, you cannot, when I got away from all sugar, anytime I taste anything with sugar in it, you can tell it's in there. You can, amazing. We went to Chick-fil-A and I got their chicken fillets and I took a bite and I'm like, man, that thing is loaded with sugar. I can taste the sweetness. In the store, I picked up a can of green beans and looked on the label. Green beans, high fructose corn syrup. What do you put sugar in green beans for? Because Americans love sugar, so they just put it, and they'll say, no fat. It's got no fat in this product. You're right, because it's so loaded with sugar, it'll kill you. All right? Sugar is so changed and concentrated from its original plant form that it's actually a drug. George Malcolmus of Hallelujah Acres, and I've read this several other places, so I think it might be accurate. He says just 10 teaspoons, approximately the amount found in one can of soda. Let me tell you, there's probably not a much more destructive thing you can do to the body than drink soda. You say, well, I drink diet soda. That's even worse than the regular stuff. It really is. There's been a lot of studies I've read that prove that diet soda causes you to gain weight. But soda, okay, so he says that it'll immobilize the immune system for about 33%. So if you drink 3 sodas, you totally shut down your immune system. Is that what you want? I want to beef mine up. I don't want it to get worse. My sister came to me and she goes, she asked me about juice and she goes, how's it affected you? And I said, I haven't been sick for, I can't even tell you how long. No colds, none of that stuff, And she says, she's a teacher, so she's sick a lot. So she started juicing about a year ago and she hasn't been sick since. It's just a coincidence. It's probably not, there's no connection there, Anecdotal evidence, that's all it is. All right. If you want to avoid diabetes, heart disease, fructose is one type of sugar you're going to want to avoid at all costs, particularly in the form of high fructose corn syrup. It's not natural. It's a science project that is killing people. But it's cheaper than sugar and it's stronger than sugar. So it's put in everything. On a biochemical analysis, high fructose corn syrup has some weird contaminants in it. I read a study that they did some testing on it. They found mercury in high fructose corn syrup. What is mercury doing in there? It's not biochemically identical to sugar. Researchers from the Children's Hospital in Oakland, listen, you can talk to Rich about this, see if it's true or not, found that fructose punches little holes in your gut. And this creates something called the leaky gut. And this condition allows the bacteria and the food proteins to get into your bloodstream, which causes serious inflammation and allergies. This high fructose corn syrup they found is punching these little teeny holes in your gut. And Amanda, you watch them. It's funny when you really get into nutrition and start studying, you see people all, and you want to say, don't drink that, don't eat that, because you just feel like it's gonna kill you. Don't do it. All right, What's the last one? Thank you. You know, it is white flour, but really any kind of flour. You know, most nutritionists now are saying grains are not really all that great for you, you know. Well, oatmeal's, you know, it depends on who you talk to. Like I said, there's a lot of different opinions. But white bread, you know what they do? They take the fiber out of it. They take the real nutrition out of it. Then they bleach it with chemicals and stuff. And then they add poisons to it. They put sugar in it, salt in it, dough conditioners, preservatives. And then they say, Wonder Bread! It's a wonder if you live if you keep eating that stuff, all right? I heard a saying years ago, it goes like this: the whiter the bread, the sooner the dead. I can't tell you when the last time was I had a sandwich because, well, you know, processed meat is just loaded with toxins anyway. So, all right. So sickness, for the most part, I think is a result of a toxic environment, an unhealthy living. And if health is going to be restored, we need to remove the cause of illness and supply some things that will bring us health. Healing is a normal biological process, I think, that's programmed into our DNA by God. But we got to have nutrition for it to heal itself. And people get sick, and then we get put on drugs that are toxic to the body, and we just, you know, we wonder why we're getting worse. We need some nutrition. I have a running thing going with my 4-year-old granddaughter that lives in the house. I'm trying to teach her what food is. And every time I walk by the table, she's sitting there, she'll go, Grandpa? She'll hold up, she goes, is this food? And she gets this look on her face, and she always wants me to say yes. You know, when I say no, she gets this frown like, oh, because she likes what she was eating, you know. But we got her eating a lot of fruit and a lot of vegetables, and it's amazing. You know, she loves it. She loves it. But you got to keep the junk away. Now, we caught her sneaking in the cupboard and taking stuff up to her bedroom, you know, at 4 years old. And, you know, she's hooked on junk food, but we're working on her. But it's funny because, Grandpa, is this food? And she's starting to know now. This is food, that's not food. She knows if it has a label, comes in a package. But, you know, I'll tell you what. Most of my grandkids, when you see what they eat for lunch, they send them to school at lunch, and they got this little package with little compartments in it, and you pull the lid off, and there's processed stuff all in there, and there's, you know, for breakfast they have cereal with milk on it, and then they have that for lunch, and then for dinner they have McDonald's, and I'm like, how are these kids even still alive? You know? But then we have all kinds of childhood problems. We got childhood obesity, and we got ADHD off the wall, and we got all these different problems, and we're wondering, what's wrong? Well, let's look at what's changed in our society. We don't eat food anymore. Okay, so let's go back to eating some food, and maybe some problems will go away. I don't think true healing can take place without first removing the cause and then providing the body with a simple, basic need so it can restore itself. All right? Dr. Norman Walker, he became seriously ill with cancer in his 40s. He did some research. He started juicing, and he's written a lot of books on juicing, great books on juicing, and he healed himself of cancer. But then he died shortly later at 117 years old. He lived to 117, and he was working right up to the point when he died. He was taking patients, he was seeing patients, and his waiting list was so long that someone went to, I wanted to see Dr. Walker, and they told me it'd be months before I get in there. He goes, I know he can't live that long. You know? They're afraid he'll be dead before I get in to see him. But he died at 117 years old. He's written a lot of books. He wrote books past the, how old was he? 115 when he wrote his last book. So he was, you know, he wasn't sitting around in a chair all decrepit and stuff. He was very healthy till his death. Max Gerson. Since the 1920s, the Gerson therapy developed by Max Gerson has obtained results by using fresh vegetable juices that have been unparalleled by orthodox medicine. Incurable diseases are being healed at the Gerson Clinic. Here's some of the lists of things that they have healed: lung cancer, spreading melanoma, lymphoma, bone cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, brain cancer, liver cancer, prostate cancer, multiple sclerosis, severe asthma, emphysema, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, lupus, and more. Read the Gerson book on healing. It is incredible. And they're healing this stuff with vegetable juice and coffee enemas. Dr. Mary Ruth Swoop writes this: if it could be expected that all scientists in the world agreed on a single fact, I believe they would agree life begins, is maintained, and ends at the cellular level. The health of a single cell holds the key to the health of the whole organism. Cells made strong through good nutrition will go a long way to giving you an immune system that will resist the illness so prevalent in our society. Healthy cells require healthy food. Healthy food is food eaten just as close to raw as God made it. Close to nature as God made it. And that means raw. And this is food. In case you wondered what food looked like, that's food. Now again, when you cook it, over 160 degrees, you destroy enzymes. And the body needs these enzymes to function. And every step in the processing of food takes it further and further away from the state that God intended it, that your body needs to survive. This is not food. I've heard people say when you go to the grocery store, just stay on the outside aisles. Don't go in the center of the store. Center of the store is not food. Stay on the outside where the fruit and the vegetables are. All right? So food, not food. This is subliminal advertising. Food, not food. Food, not food. Okay. Almost all sickness and disease, I believe, can be corrected by cleansing the body of toxins and providing the cells with proper building materials. The sickness will usually disappear as the body rebuilds itself. The cause and cure of sickness isn't a mystery. There's so much evidence out there, it's just beyond imagination. But it's kept from us for the most part.
Money.
Yeah, it's all about money. Now, please understand this, and I'm going to close with this. I'm closing here. So, relax. Please understand, I believe, if you know me, you know I believe in the absolute sovereignty of God. God ordains when we were born. God ordains when we die. But I also believe that God uses means to accomplish His ends. My favorite Calvinistic theologian, whose name is John Calvin, writes this in the Institutes of Christian Religion, chapter 17, paragraph 4. For He who has fixed the boundaries of our life has at the same time entrusted us with the care of it, provided us with the means of preserving it, forewarned us of the dangers to which we are exposed, and supplied cautions and remedies that we may not be overwhelmed unawares. Now our duty is clear, namely, since the Lord has committed to us the defense of our life, to defend it. Since He offers assistance, use it. Since He forewarned us of danger, not to rush on heedless, since He supplies remedies, not to neglect them. But it is said, and here's his objector, it is said, a danger that is not fatal will not hurt us, and one that is fatal cannot be resisted by any precaution. But what if dangers are not fatal? Merely because the Lord has furnished you with the means of warding them off and surmounting them. So, let's not neglect the remedies, he says, that God has given us to be healthy. What if the dangers aren't fatal? The reason they're fatal is because the Lord provided means for us to overcome that. Back up here. I believe that Yahweh has furnished with us with the means to be healthy. Now, it takes a lot more work now than it did 200 years ago. Okay, we've done a lot to destroy things that we have. And if you read some of the things they're doing with crops now, it's unbelievable. Especially corn. Be careful of corn. A lot of it's genetically modified. They don't know the results. They don't know what it'll do to humans. So we're just kind of being an experiment right now. They know that some of the things, but they're keeping it under wraps. But they're doing all kinds of weird stuff. Like I said, producing seed that has chemical built into it. Pesticides built into it. We're stewards, I believe. We're stewards of our body, and we're to take care of it. And if we do take care of them, we will reap the benefit. We'll be able to do more. We'll feel better about doing it. We'll, last longer. And, I don't want to live forever. I really don't. Believe me. Okay? What I want, I like to be healthy as long as I am alive. I like to enjoy life as long as I am alive. And I know, being healthy, you get to enjoy a lot more. You say, you don't get to enjoy food. I enjoy food. 6 days a week, I juice, and, pretty much not much else. Maybe some salads or a potato, sweet potato or something, all organic stuff. On Sundays, I eat whatever I want. Let me tell you, sometimes Sundays, I'm at the end, I'm destructive, because I'm like, it's been a long week. But, I just figure if 6 days, I'm great. I can put up with that. Now, if I had problems, I'd back off more. But, and I'll tell you what, man, when the less food you eat, the more you really enjoy it. Stuff tastes good that I never would have eaten before. I'm like, wow, that's really a fruit. I'd never touch an apple unless I was on a diet or something, But it really is good when you're, eating healthy. And I think the best way to take care of ourselves is proper nutrition. Try to make the bulk of your intake raw fruits, raw vegetables, nuts. Drink plenty of clean water. That's another big substance. In our day, you know, your water supply from the city is loaded with fluoride and all kinds of other stuff that is destructive. So, you know, try to have some clean water. And here's the thing, exercise on a regular basis. You say, what is that? You know, just get up and move, you know, go for a walk, do some kind of exercise. And let me tell you, if you want a really great exercise, Dr. Mercola, Phil Campbell really put this thing together. It's called Sprint 8. And they developed this. He works with all these different athletes and stuff. He's a sprinter coach. And, you know, if you look at two people, if I put a sprinter up here and a marathon runner up there, which one would you like to look like? The marathon runner is kind of emaciated. You know, he's like skin and bones, you know, and, you know, people say, I'm healthy, I'm a marathon runner. Look at the sprinter. He's muscular, he's solid as a rock. So they developed this thing called Sprint 8, where it's a 20-minute exercise program. I've been doing it for over a year and absolutely love it. All right, and they're doing more testing now. I just read some new results. But you do a 3-minute workout, then you go all out for 30 seconds, whatever it is. If it's on elliptical, if it's on a bike, on a treadmill, you just go all out, everything you got for 30 seconds. When you get to about 30, you should not be able to go beyond. That's how far. And then you rest for a minute and a half, just slow, and then you do that 8 times. The research has found this. When you're doing that properly, your body releases 800 times the normal amount of human growth hormone, which destroys fat, builds muscle. I'm telling you, it is amazing the way you feel from this. You know, they say they don't test Olympic athletes for human growth hormone because sprinters just naturally produce it. And so it's 20 minutes. I love it because you're either in agony because you're in the 30 seconds, you know, I got 10 more seconds to go, and it's a long, long time, but then you're resting for the minute and a half, and that goes by really fast, so 20 minutes and you're done, and these people are in the gym, and they're there for 2 hours on the treadmill, and I just smile, I'm like, see you later, you know. And they've really found, I mean, the results are amazing. Go to Dr. Mercola, look up Sprint 8, Phil Campbell wrote the book on it, it's a tremendous, and again, they're doing more and more research, and they're seeing better and better results, they're realizing more exactly what this does. So I believe that if we work on eating healthy, if we have healthy bodies, if we have healthy minds, and please understand, the mind is connected to the body. You know, people have mental problems. A lot of that can be connected to what they're eating also. All right, I don't have time to go into any more of this, but listen, I believe that when we are healthy, we can do more. We can accomplish more for the glory of God. And I believe we're stewards. We're stewards of the planet that God has given us, and it's a beautiful place. I want my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids to be able to enjoy it. But it takes everybody doing their part. And, of course, when it comes to your body, you're the only one that can do any part. All right? But the more we take care of ourselves, I think, the better we're going to be all the way around. How should we then live? I think we are called to live as good stewards. Over the planet, over our bodies. Let's pray. Father, I thank you this morning. I thank you for this weekend, Lord. It has been absolutely incredible. Thank you for these people. Father, I pray that you would give every one of us the heart of a Berean, that we would be willing to search, to research any subject, any topic, anything that's put in front of us. We would not blindly accept things. We would be students. We would be 5%ers. We would dig. We would study in all areas of life. Father, teach us. Grant us wisdom. We love you, Lord. We thank you for providing for us eternal life through your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. What a blessed time this weekend has been in worship and fellowship and just enjoying the body of Christ. What a glimpse of heaven it was, Lord. Thank you so much. Father, I pray for these folks as they travel home, that you would protect them as they travel. Father, that we would be able to take the things we've learned here and actually put them into our lives, make them part of our daily living. Thank you, Father, for your incredible grace. In Jesus' name, amen.